All right, we are rolling. Good day, folks, and welcome to the 9-4 podcast. I believe it is the third podcast of the 9-4, and we have the pleasure of chatting to someone that is 3 times the man. Third podcast, 3 times the man. And if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm talking about my man's Seb Prentice, a.k.a. Mr. Half Man, Half Amazing. He runs faster than you cycle, and he also runs further than you cycle. He bench presses more than you squat and deadlift. And he's an undercover, sexy caramel brother. You get me? Seb, welcome, brother.
Thank you
It's
so
a pleasure
much.
to be chatting to you. Seb and I are going to be chatting all things fitness, nutrition, his philosophy around fitness, and various other ideas that he has. He's a fairly sagacious guy. He's also an entrepreneur. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, folks. Seb, I'd like to start with the question that everyone has, I guess everyone thinks of when they see you. And it's not how much you bench. But what is your sporting background, man? We see you running. We see you lifting heavy-ass weights. We see you running with weighted vests and all those lovely apparatuses. What is your sporting background?
So, first of all, thank you so much for having me. That I don't think it's difficult to top that intro, but my sporting background. I love that question. By the way, it's quite comprehensive. It started very early on, and it was used. Sport primarily, I think, was a tool used by my mom to kind of pacify me because I am a very high energy. I mean, I may come across very calm, but that's because I exercise so much, I think.
What happens when you don't exercise?
I get very jittery and, it's not a
You don't throw people into walls.
I don't. I try not to. I do my best not to. But the first time I was introduced to sport, it was swimming, and it was quite regimented. I was swimming with a coach called Brian Button at the Sports Science Institute from about the age of 8. I was doing 4 sessions a week, early morning sessions. My mom would take me there. She would go do her gym. I would do my swimming, and I did all right at swimming. I like butterfly the most, and was doing various other sports, judo, cricket, rugby, water polo, and then eventually athletics as well, mainly field events, so shot put, javelin, long jump, and then I did 400 as well.
Nice.
But eventually everything else kind of fell away, and my sights honed in on rugby.
Nice.
And rugby was kind of the thing that I stuck with the longest. I played rugby for about 11 years, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's what exposed me to a lot of strength and conditioning knowledge, was because I was privileged enough to be in one of the kind of the higher teams from the beginning. We always had exposure to good coaching, good strength and conditioning. I think I was in a strength and conditioning program from 15 already.
Yep.
So getting proper professional coaching in the weight room from that age is it's such a it's a huge gift, because a lot of the difficulty around strength training is the technique. It's are you managing your load correctly, and that was all taken care of from very early on. So my sporting background is rugby, but as I said, there was a lot of experimentation and playing around with other sport codes, but rugby I enjoyed the most because it was an outlet for some sort of, I suppose, aggression, which was fun. It was cool to be able to get physical and just sprint around the field, and it was just very therapeutic. So
You found smashing people.
oh, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it. But funnily enough, I look back on it now, and I watch rugby, and I just think, like, what was I thinking?
It's interesting because you've got a very gentlemanly demeanor about you. You get me? Like, it's you carry yourself with particular gravitas. So it's somewhat incongruent, smashing people and how you carry yourself these days. So
I think that's also, I think I managed to kind of remain fairly, composed and whatnot, because I still incorporate weights, and I find that different exercise modalities fulfill different purposes in my life. So running is very calming, it's very peaceful, it's very meditative, whereas lifting weights is quite aggressive. There's a lot of force that you're releasing, and I feel that that's healthy and important for everyone, because we have these mind states that we can kind of tap into using our bodies, and I think lifting is super super cool as a kind of focused outlet of aggression, so that when you're just navigating day-to-day life, you can be chilled.
Yeah. It's quite interesting what you say. I mean, I'm sure you've done a lot of reading on ADD amongst boys and the correlation between that, and I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a qualified person in this field, but I've done a fair amount of reading on it. But the degree to which physical activity, not just organized physical activity, but other non-organized physical activity and play, the degree to which that has declined, and the increase in ADD amongst boys. Now, there's a school of thought that says that the two are connected, because boys and people in general are moving less and having fewer vectors to express their physicalities. That manifests in attention deficit. So it's quite interesting to hear that your mother made you play sports in order to give you that outlet.
Yes.
And I think it's maybe something that folks in modern society should consider.
I think it is a really valuable tool. I have no parenting experience, but I think that I know that she was also approached at some stage in my early years with the suggestion of potentially medicating me, because I was a very high energy child, and I was also quite confrontational with teachers, and I didn't do so well with authority, and she kind of brushed that aside and said, no, I'm just going to put him in sport more. I'm going to put him in sport more. And eventually I kind of settled into the system, and I started making it work for me, and adapting to it. But I think a lot of the time people are quick to prescribe. It doesn't even have to be specifically for ADHD or ADD. I've never been diagnosed, but quick to prescribe medication where you can use certain lifestyle interventions before jumping the gun on that. Maybe someone's feeling emotionally uneasy, but they haven't looked at their sleep, their nutrition, their movement, their social circle, how they're looking at their lifestyle before jumping onto some sort of prescription pushed onto them by a doctor or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to your journey. So you've been playing rugby, you've done all your broad-based sporting endeavors. Where does running come in? Because I remember the first time I ever saw you was at Virgin Active Point. And you were bending the bar. And there were only a few other people that could do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm one of them, but perhaps I was. But there are a few people that could do that on squats. And then all of a sudden, I think we met again at the prom or something like that, you were running like 21 Ks in extremely fast pace. So where does running come into that equation?
So I stopped. So there was a switch. My relationship with rugby changed round about the time it started to become a little bit more professional. When I was in high school, I also fortunate enough to be approached by a number of unions, ended up going to the Stellenbosch Academy of Sport with Western Province, and that completely changed my relationship with rugby, because it started to feel like an obligation and a chore and a job as opposed to a game. And the level at which they were pushing us and having us train was excessive. A lot of so we had 2 days a week, which were 4 days, so 4 training sessions a day. Most days were 2 a days, so the training load was enormous, and I wasn't really enjoying it, and I continued with that into Marty's as well. So for about 3 years I was playing with that level of frequency, and I stuck at it because I was getting bursaries, and I wanted to get myself through school as opposed to being reliant on my mom. And the bursary stopped eventually, so I stopped playing rugby, but I had this kind of expectation to be exercising at that frequency and at that level. So I couldn't just take away, 10 to 14 sessions a week and have nothing. And the weightlifting stayed naturally because it was something that I'd been doing for fun throughout anyway, but I wanted to add something into the mix that could kind of, fill that void that rugby was leaving. And it was actually between, funnily enough, rugby, running and yoga. So I said I wanted to do a 100-day exercise challenge of some form of exercise which I just did not enjoy. And I really didn't like running.
Enjoy running?
Did not like running at all.
Was it because of rugby?
Yes. I didn't want to run anywhere off of the rugby pitch. I didn't enjoy running, and my body still doesn't, my mobility is not my strong point.
You don't exactly scream running.
No. So it's that, but also the fact that, with the yoga, I just didn't move particularly well. So those were the two I was playing around with.
You also don't exactly scream yogi.
No, neither runner nor yogi. But that was also that was the point of the thing. It was
absolutely.
Like, let me do something for 100 days that I just don't enjoy.
Yeah.
And I picked running, and I think on day, it was like day 78 or 76. I can check. I'm not sure, but I ran a half marathon. And I think by then, like, the kind of bug had bitten. Yeah. And that was about 3.5 years ago.
Jeez.
And I've just kind of...
You've ran with it.
I've ran with it quite literally. But I do tend to, when I enjoy something, I enjoy things in excess. Okay. And that's a personality trait of mine,
All or nothing.
I love that. It's like, if something's nice and you enjoy it, then do it a lot. Like, what's the... And my mom always used to speak about moderation, and I found that so difficult to kind of take in, because I thought, but I like the thing, so why don't I just do it a lot? But
some people say that you must moderate on moderation.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has its place, but it is quite interesting to see how quickly you're moving over such large distances whilst carrying so much size. Like, it's not very common to see someone of your size to move that fast for that long. I can tell you that. So my question is, how do you keep the mass? What's the secret to that?
So I think without getting overly technical, I think our bodies love homeostasis. We like to remain...
Can you simplify that?
We like to remain the same, in a state of kind of equilibrium, where things are steady, constant, predictable. There's a kind of middle line, and naturally our bodies like to stay there. And from the age of 14 to the age of maybe 20, I was telling my body to be muscular. So I was putting it under stimulus that was telling it to develop muscle, to grow, to become stronger. And just because I switched overnight to more running, my body was not all of a sudden going to say, okay, this isn't useful anymore, we're going to get rid of it. I think, so that is number one, is that I just built up over a number of years. And number two, I continue to lift, and I continue to lift relatively heavy weights, and I continue to keep my lifting frequency quite high. So I'm lifting at least 2 to 4 times a week. And when I do lift, it's generally 2 to 4 exercises, and it's intense and it's heavy. So I focus on quality. I focus on lifts that are time efficient. So compound movements where you're doing one lift that incorporates multiple muscle groups and puts a significant stress on your body so that it's reminded that it needs to remain strong and muscular. And I also have no problem with eating. So I eat a lot. So and that's the big one. So obviously there's the whole homeostasis thing. Your body wants to remain the same. You're still also reminding your body to remain muscular and strong. But at the same time, you are nourishing your body with the right foods in order for it to, remain strong and keep everything that it's built over the years.
That's interesting. I want to push you more on that because I get it from a theoretical and a scientific perspective. But once you breach like regular marathons, you usually find people do tend to, I wouldn't say atrophy, but they decline in size, and you've completely avoided that. So take us through like your general like strength training. What does that look like, and some of your eating? You know what I'm saying? Are you following a particular diet, set of calories? How does that vary depending on the kind of running that you're doing?
So, in terms of my training, do you want me to incorporate the running in that as well?
Yeah.
So generally speaking, don't ask me why, Monday's a rest day, so there's no run on a Monday.
Okay.
That's just prescribed by Coach Brendan.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll usually put an upper body lift on a Monday because for
Okay.
me that still constitutes rest.
Yeah.
Because it's not directly taxing what I use to run. So I will bench press on that day. I'll do some pull-ups, and then if I'm feeling energized, I'll add in a couple of other things, maybe some tricep push downs or some barbell rows. But that lift won't be much longer than 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Then on a Tuesday, it's a hard run. So something like not sprints, but it'll be hill repeats, or it will be fast intervals, or so like, I don't know, 4 times, just an example, would be like 4 times 3 kilometers at a certain pace with like slightly slower float periods in between.
Yeah.
And then if I'm deep into a prep, I'd also have a 30-minute easy run later on in the day. And then I'd also do lower on that day. So Tuesdays are a big day.
Yeah.
Wednesday is an easy run and then an optional upper workout. It's very similar to Monday. Thursday is very similar to Tuesday. So 3 sessions. Friday is either a spin or another easy run.
Yeah.
Of an hour, more or less.
Yeah.
Saturday's a long run. And Sunday's a long run.
Do you have any days of like complete rest?
If there is one, it's Monday, but it usually comes around every 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
And I just play it by ear.
All right.
I'll see how I'm feeling
Yeah.
on a whole bunch of different levels, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
Just see where am I at. If I'm not feeling super good, then I'll be like, okay, well, I've gone 2 weeks now. And I'm not feeling good. I should probably just relax.
Monday blues.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And then diet.
Nutrition is
How many calories do you eat in a day?
I would estimate close to 4,000 calories, like 3,500, 4,000 probably.
Isn't that too little?
I don't.
Considering how much you move, 3.5.
3.5 is like on a low day.
Okay.
But probably closer to 3.8, 4,000.
Okay.
But I'm not counting calories at this stage.
Yeah.
The only time I count calories is if I'm trying to drop weight for a marathon PR.
Yeah.
Just for sake of efficiency. But yeah, so it's probably around 4,000 calories a day. And it's not hugely regimented, but usually my first meal will only be at around 9 or 10. So when I have a little gap in clients, like coaching clients, and that will usually be a loop of Drivos from Arthur's. Shout out Arthur's. Love the place. Go to Arthur's. Drivos for breakfast.
My God, you haven't gotten Stellenbosch out of here.
No,
Drivos for breakfast.
It's beautiful. And then I'll probably pair that with a flat white and a croissant.
That's such a strange combination.
It's phenomenal. Try it out.
Are you like part French, part Afrikaans?
Well, I mean, my dad's Congolese, so there is French speaking there, but there's no. It's not a.
You're not gonna put like some fufu in there.
No.
Throw in some pap in there.
No, so that's usually breakfast.
Yeah.
And then for lunch, I'll have a more kind of substantial meal. So whether it's, and when I say something and rice, there is vegetable. Just assume they're vegetables, tomatoes usually, but like chicken and rice or steak and rice.
Yeah.
And then tomatoes of some sort. That'll be my lunch, and then dinner time will usually be something similar.
Okay.
And I snack throughout the day, so I'll probably go for another round of Drivos at some point.
Yeah.
I like nuts, so I like cashews, I like mixed nuts, like Brazil nuts.
All right.
I snack on a lot of grapes, raspberries, blueberries.
Yeah.
What I absolutely love, one of my favorite things ever is double thick Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
With some oats, like raw uncooked oats, honey, and then blueberries and raspberries. And you just mix it up and you eat it like that. It's phenomenal.
It sounds like it needs to be cooked.
It doesn't. It doesn't need to be cooked.
Sure?
I promise.
let me let you into a trick. I was supposed to divulge this later, but I'll do it now, just for you. You get me? Have you had double cream Greek yogurt with casein protein before?
Too sweet.
No, have less sweet protein. Have less sweet cake. No, honestly, it's literally like chocolate mousse.
Yeah,
if you guys haven't tried it, you get me? It'll change your life. You won't want any other dessert. High protein, high fat, you get me?
But high flatulence as well.
It depends. It depends.
Tooting away for the next day and a half.
No, not really. You know what I'm saying? If your microbiome is intact, then you're good. You know, so try it out. It'll change your dessert game.
That is a very good suggestion, and it is really tasty.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Throw some bananas, slice some banana, and put that in as well.
There we go. Just not the uncooked oats. You get me?
I promise you, don't bash it until you try it. And what's even better, take it a step further. Do instant oats because it's smoother. It's more, the mixability is better. So it's like creamy. It's delicious. I promise you.
Might as well just have normally cooked oats.
No, you don't want it to be warm. It must be cold. And also when it's
winter, my guy.
Also, there's a bit of a texture. You know, when you have the cooked oats, it can be very slimy, and sometimes it's like you don't want that.
It's not slimy, it's hearty. It reminds you of grandmother's cooking. But talking about grandmother's cooking, you are going to be tackling a mammoth race in about a week.
Yes.
You get me? Why?
That was a very interesting segue, but
Why?
I
mean, grandmothers are typically there to push us, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
They're the ones, they nourish us, but they're like, yo, my guy, you got to get out there and conquer. So, yeah.
So the question is, why am I...
Why are you doing it? It seems beyond necessary. I know your slogan, we're going to get to this, is beyond physical, but 160 kilometers, 100 miles, is a very long way to run. Most people prefer to drive that. I, for myself, prefer to drive that. You're going to be running that. And for many people, it seems unnecessary beyond, I guess, beyond even the extreme. You know, what is your thinking behind that? What are you trying to accomplish? Why put yourself through such a challenge?
That's a really good question, because that's what was keeping me up in the early hours of the morning this morning when I started getting my first bit of pre-match jitters, which I actually love. But I think it's very much to do. It's a curiosity thing. I'm just intrigued.
Yeah.
I'm interested to know what that's going to feel like.
Yeah.
Why I want to know what that feels like. Absolutely no idea. It's just something that I think would be. I guess I generally do enjoy things that are very challenging, and I enjoy the period of kind of wondering whether or not I'm going to figure that challenge out, and then coming through that. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think Huberman refers to it as limbic friction.
That's the one.
Where you're exposing yourself intentionally to things that are difficult and uncomfortable, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So I think that might just be the scale to which that kind of desire has now, grown. But primarily it is a curiosity thing.
Yeah. What are you hoping to find out about yourself?
I don't know. I suppose just what faculties and what things I pull on when I'm in that headspace. But I must admit, I never would have anticipated taking it to this kind of extreme. And I totally agree with you that it's an unnecessarily long distance to run.
It's noble. It is absolutely noble to, one, set that goal to run 160 kilometers, B, to work towards that, and then to actually intentionally do that. That is absolutely normal, or it's noble rather. But yeah, I mean, the rationale behind it is baffling for a number of people. And also to just say curiosity. Like, what do you want to know about yourself?
That is a really good question, but I think to be honest, it's just where I go when it gets that difficult. So where do I go mentally? What do I try and pull on? Like, how do I get myself through that? What does it feel like? What is the self-talk like? Is it positive, or is it am I kind of shouting at myself to push through it, or am I nurturing myself through it? Am I saying, you're going to get through this, you're going to be fine? Like, how am I going to walk myself through that situation?
Yeah.
Because I know that in previous situations in my life that have been difficult. I've had, I don't know, certain approaches to it, and some are very hard and harsh, and some are very nurturing and kind. And I guess just feeling those different responses from myself to a situation interests me. It forces quite a profound level of introspection, especially when you are suffering through something like that. And I definitely wouldn't say that I am a masochist, because I don't enjoy the pain. I don't enjoy the sensation of the pain, but I enjoy and appreciate the presence that it affords me. Yeah. Because I generally, and there's actually a bit of a theme that keeps coming up now, but I'm a busy, high energy person, physically and mentally. Yeah. And I do often find it challenging to find states of flow and states where I am fully in the moment. And there are a number of ways that you can do that, loving relationships, a genuine human connection, things that you enjoy, and pain. Yeah. Pain is a very, for me, low-hanging fruit kind of avenue into just being here. Yeah. And just thinking about the thing that you're currently doing. And I think that's also an element of it that appeals to me, is there's going to be a moment where I am just questioning all the reasons why I'm there. But that's a great state of presence to be in. Yeah. Do I need to put myself through that to achieve presence? No, but I do I enjoy a challenge. Yeah. And I think it does just interest me to see where I go mentally in that state.
Do you have any spiritual reasons for doing something like that?
I feel maybe in the sense that I feel very connected to my late mother when I endure pain. I feel her kind of right here, like speaking to me, which is really cool. Because she was the hardest working person I knew, and she was very kind of, grit your teeth and get shit done. She was like, put your head down and just, you'll get through it. Yeah. And if you put your mind to anything, you can get it done. So I think spiritually that's maybe what it is, but kind of her aside and my relationship with myself kind of being more the center of it. It's just, I suppose, sitting in that space of presence. Because I think that is a really beautiful, it can be very spiritual, to just kind of sit in the present moment.
Absolutely. I mean, I find with the little running that I do relative to what you do, it gets to a point where it's fairly meditative.
Yes.
That breathing, that step ahead of another step, I feel like it's quite comparable to when you sit in a yoga studio and people tell you to listen to your breath, and, sort of calms your mind, reduces your heart. I mean, running doesn't really reduce your heart rate, but it sort of draws you into a certain center where everything else is just noise and you're within yourself. I think it's a beautiful state to arrive at.
And I find that you don't do a huge amount of trail, or you do? You're predominantly road.
I don't run trails. I walk them.
Okay.
Like a normal human being.
Okay.
Yeah.
But don't you find that the environment that you're in on the trail has a different energy to running in and amongst cars on the road?
Absolutely. And for me, that's why I enjoy hiking. It's quite a spiritual experience for me. I do find that mountains have a very, very grounding effect. I don't know if you've read much John Muir. He's quite a famous author and a philosopher who philosophizes a lot about mountains. And he talks about mountains having music for those who are willing to listen. And that, for me, just resonates when I'm out there, even just here by Table Mountain. And from a cultural perspective, mountains do play a very important role. You go to the mountains for initiation. You go to the mountains to speak to your ancestors. You go to mountains to seek wisdom. And although, that hasn't been forcefully ingrained on me. It's sort of knowledge that sits at the back of your head from your previous learnings as a child. So I do find the experience of being out on a trail, not necessarily running, but walking, quite a moving and deeply spiritual, yet also calming, yet also overwhelming experience. So can relate somehow, just not panting like you. So yeah, but you are running this 160 kilometers for a cause, I believe.
Yes.
Do you want to share
I'd
a
love
bit
to.
about that, please? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something that my flatmate Jason and I are doing together. And the last ultra we ran was Ultra Trail Drakensberg, which is a 100-kilometer run. And one of the parents of a friend of ours who we'd gone to school with from the age of 5 said to us, please, if you consider doing one of these things again, will you make it about something bigger than the two of you, because I think there's a community around you that would like to get behind something. And to Jason and I both, education has been a huge privilege that we've been afforded. So we looked around the George community for some initiatives, and we found Usapo Indlu, which is it is an organization that focuses on uplifting households within the George community, underprivileged households. And they have a number of different things that they do, but what we are focused on is equipping a learning center. So the need for the learning center came about because a lot of the parents came forward to the organization from the underprivileged areas in and around George and said, the households they're quite volatile, and there's sometimes drug use in the households and around the community, and it's not necessarily conducive to learners being able to focus and kids being able to just go and do their homework and excel academically, because they don't have the space to do that calmly and peacefully and undisturbed. So there's that. Also, just resources, so access to computers and the internet. So we're equipping that, and it's for 46 or 47 learners, if I'm not mistaken. But you can find information to that. I'm sure we could maybe leave a link somewhere, or on my socials you can find more information. So we're building a learning center for them, and then we are also getting reliable transport. So organizing a minivan, we'll purchase a minivan, because the schools that most of the students who go to the learning center or want to go to the learning center, so currently they do have a learning center, but it's not very well equipped. So who currently go to the learning center, it's about a 45-minute walk away. So it's difficult for them to get there. They often get there, they're tired, or it's been raining, and then you don't really want to do homework when you're drenched or when you're very tired from walking. And so we're raising funds, 350,000 Rand to be exact, to equip that learning center and to buy a minivan to help get those kids learning in a more stable environment.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely important initiative. I mean, we don't have to stress the importance of education, especially in a country like South Africa, where so many people don't have access to education. And even when there are facilities, those are poorly equipped, they are poorly staffed, kids don't get fed, kids also struggle to get there. So to bridge that gap is essential. And we know that education is the universal key. It unlocks many doors, and the more young people we educate, the better the prospects of this country and all of us as an individual. So kudos to you for doing that, brother, and we'll definitely spread the word on the initiative and lend weight to it. So
thank you.
Yeah,
Menzi, I wanted to ask, so you've spent quite a bit of time at the moment, ready for this flip. You spend quite a lot of time at the moment analyzing Ramaphosa's economy. What have the trends looked like in terms of education? Have you managed to look much into that? Have there been significant improvements or not? Like, what is the state of that at the moment?
Look, I will first qualify this by saying that I'm not an education economist or an educator, so this is not a professional opinion. But having looked at big data around education outcomes, I would say that they are very precarious. And it's very, very worrying, because the basis of any skilled and productive society is education. It's not necessarily just going to school and learning your books, it's also technical skills. And South Africa is declining with respect to that across the board. One, we don't have the facilities. The facilities that we do have aren't adequately equipped. The teachers, we have fantastic teachers, but they are often overburdened. Some aren't also properly qualified. As you've mentioned, we have a problem whereby kids struggle to get to school. Even if they get to school, they are underfed. All right. And then there are also issues around standards of education. South Africa has lowered the benchmark for a pass for understandable reasons, but that has consequences as well. People are getting through the system that should not necessarily be doing so, given their competence at that degree. It's not to say that everyone should be failed, but we shouldn't lower the standard. We should raise the quality of our education and properly equip our kids to be globally competitive, and we're not doing that. So the crisis, and I don't want to crisis monger, but I think it is sufficient to call it a crisis of education, is quite concerning. It is multifaceted, and it is worrying, not just for today but for tomorrow. How we carry this economy, how we become more productive, is predicated on how well educated our children are. And at the moment, it's not looking particularly promising. So again, kudos to your initiative for tackling a very important problem. And, you know, to deviate to something that you are particularly versed in, which is the physical element of life. I mean, that's one avenue that people typically overlook when it comes to education and when it comes to opportunities as well. You know, we are very fixated on the sciences, the engineerings, the medicines, the finances, and people often neglect physical education. And I think that is a sphere that we can also incentivize kids to go into, and perhaps that's something that you're looking at. Or not?
It's something that I have not thought about extensively, but I have thought about how that can be made more accessible, because it does seem to be at least access to facilities where you can gain a physical education. Yeah, it's fairly exclusive. It's quite. It's pretty much only available to people in the higher income areas of South Africa that I've noticed. Yeah. Where, you know, there aren't very many low cost options. I mean, there are outdoor gyms and things like that, but I think there's a lot of, I don't know, I would love for there to be some sort of rollout of a physical education program, because it can be a catalyst to improving all elements of people's lives. Yeah, where absolutely. You know, you get yourself into physical shape, or you're feeling stronger, and you can use that to then elevate yourself in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely. On to more trivial stuff, I would say. Is there any particular athlete that you look up to, apart from Paul Ward?
Apart from the obvious, athletes that I look up to,
or that you model your athleticism on.
I've gained a lot of inspiration from Nick Bear.
Okay.
He's shown me that you can run and lift. I've also gained a lot of inspiration from David Goggins. Yeah. Just the ability to endure. Yeah. But to be honest, in terms of like just an out and out spectacle of just like a phenomenal athlete, I would say DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if he's still there, but he's incredible. He's powerful, he's fast, he's strong, explosive. And then, there's this other American football player who I think is also Saquon Barkley. He had a really impressive combine. I love that system of testing their athletes' proficiencies in what they can do athletically, where they put them through that battery of tests. There must be more though. But yeah, I'd say
that's a good selection.
I'd say the person who's probably influenced my view of what we can do physically the most would probably be Nick Bear.
He's a fascinating one, isn't he?
He is.
Like some of the things that he does, again, that are seemingly counterintuitive and mutually opposed, but he does them to such an exceptional level. Have you come across a Fergus Crowley before?
Yes, he's young. He's 25, I think, or 26.
Yeah.
He's
hell of impressive.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the state of fitness in Cape Town?
Unbelievable. Unbelievably good.
Okay.
Generally speaking. I mean, I'm predominantly on the Atlantic seaboard.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of the most active areas I've seen anywhere. I mean, you go for a walk down to the promenade, there are constantly people moving. Yeah. It's a very walkable area, so people walk around a lot. There are cyclists everywhere. Yeah. People are always in the mountains. It's a very active
it is a very enabling environment, isn't it? Yeah. And obviously also in fitness entrepreneurship.
Yes.
How's that going? How did you get into it, actually?
So it's testing me, so it's going well, because that's exactly what I wanted. Yeah. But I got into it because I studied something that kind of was the what everyone said was a good thing to study at my school. So I did a very general BCom. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I did that. Yeah. Because I did it to kind of like tick a box. Okay. But I did always know that I enjoyed exercise, and I enjoyed it more than most people did. Yeah. Or do. I enjoyed more than most people do. And I kind of tried my hand at where my natural skill set moved me towards, which was sales roles, because I like people and I like interacting with people. Yeah. So I tried a couple of corporate roles, and they both just were not satisfying me or fulfilling me. Yeah. And then all the while on the side, I was taking outdoor classes. Yeah.
I remember that during lockdown.
Yes.
You were a competitor.
I was doing I was doing these online classes as well, kind of 3 times a week. So I always had it kind of slow burning on the side. Yeah. And after a couple of attempts at corporate, I decided, it's very clear to me that I want to do this, because even when I was working my 9-to-5 jobs, I would always wake up early in the morning, take clients, then take a group class after work for very little, often no pay, just because I enjoyed it. Yeah. And it just seemed very clear to me that that's what I should be doing.
Talking about being all in.
Exactly. And I was like, let me just do this. So, I got the opportunity to open that gym, Horizon, almost 2 years ago. So it was quite a brash and fast kind of. I mean, it had been brewing for a while. Yeah. But the way that I executed it was very, looking back on it, it was crazy, because I quit my job and I didn't have a space yet. So I quit my job with no plan. And it was within 2 weeks that I'd signed a lease for a space that happened to be opposite where I was living. Yeah. It just kind of, everything aligned so well. Yeah. And within 5 weeks, the gym was open. So it was like a 7-week...
Stumble your way to success, as they say.
Trying to get to success. I wouldn't quite call it that yet, but yeah.
The journey is moving. Seb, to conclude, I'm going to ask you for 5 exercises, you get me? 5 exercises that you deem to be necessary in training regimes for a hybrid athlete, or to achieve all-round athleticism across all baselines. Okay. Which would be your top 5? Let's go.
I'm going to try and center it around proficiencies that I feel like we should have. Okay. As opposed to, because some of the exercises might not be achievable right now for everyone. No Zerches, actually, surprisingly enough. Yeah. But I'd say pull-up, number 1. Okay. If you can't do a pull-up, do an assisted pull-up. Yeah. Get some bands going or something. Yeah. to help kind of bounce you up, or however, get a friend to boost you. So I'd say pull up. I would say a push up as well. It's very important. I would say hiking, but more specifically ruck hiking. So load something in a backpack.
Snacks.
So being able to put snacks in a backpack and eat as you go, so the load decreases as your fatigue increases. It's actually very smart. What else? I think walking as well would be a big one.
Rucking and walking.
Rucking and walking, yeah, because some days you might not have the energy to go ruck.
Okay, you've got one more, Seb.
I know that this one is going to make you very happy.
Don't make me happy, Seb. Make the people happy.
It's something that I don't really like to do myself. I do variations of it. But I don't think we can get out of this without including the deadlift. Yeah.
Bing.
So but the deadlift you can play around with it. You can do a Romanian deadlift.
Okay.
You can do deficit deadlifts. You can do a whole bunch. But picking something up off of the ground is a very transferable movement skill throughout your life, because it helps you kind of get low to the ground and then stand back up, which is something that becomes more and more challenging over time. And if you can keep that competency, you're going to live a pretty comfortable life. You can pick your kids up, you can pick your grandkids up, you can get up off of your chair without needing a lot of assistance. So so I would say pull up, push up, ruck, hike, walk, and deadlift.
No bicep curls.
No bicep curls. You can you can do that with your pull-ups.
Okay.
Yeah.
They do say there's that saying rather about training not just to beat yourself and not just to beat records, but to be able to pick up your grandkids one day.
Totally.
And to be able to play with them as much as possible. So training ought to have a long view, and within that, I guess, a short view. But most importantly, it's those overarching goals that you can't necessarily quantify that make training worth it. Seb, I think we'll wrap it up there, brother man. Thank you very much for your time and for your insights. We wish you well for your 160-kilometer run. I hope that you find the presence that you seek and the insights that you are pursuing about yourself and about your word. And looking forward to the incredible feats of strength and cardio that you do on a regular basis. So keep it up, brother man. Stay beyond physical, as you say.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed this chat a lot.
Always a pleasure, man.
Thanks, Menzi.
Okay. Woo.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.